Book 2, welcome to Jackie's Lyric Corner. And it's time for my wrap up for the third quarter. It is a little late, just like the second quarter wrap up. So that's the only problem with this is I seem to forget when to do them. So I need to either write myself a reminder or maybe go back to the old way of wrapping up books each month. But like I said, the only problem with that is that adds a little bit of pressure for me to make sure I have. Not that I absolutely have to, I know that, but it still feels I still feel a bit of an obligation to be like, I want to have more than one book read. And it definitely worked, it definitely came in handy because September, I didn't get as many books read, which is fine. That's, I enjoyed the books, the two that I got to. But I just don't, I don't want to do like early tiny wrap ups where I only talk about 2 books. I mean, yeah, again, not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm sure maybe you guys probably don't mind, but for me personally, I would like to at least do 3 at the most. So I don't know. I just gotta remind myself to do this. Okay, so the third quarter is July 1st through the September 31st. I always get trouble. I always have struggle with saying the f as an f sound and the th sound. I always get those two mixed up. So I started out with Weight of Ink. Now this actually probably could have been more of a winter or autumnal read. I absolutely love this. I think I did a review for this one, or maybe I'm just thinking about my Goodreads review, but I just love this book. It reminded me a little bit of The Historian with the whole academic setting, these two people doing research into the past. It also has multiple timelines, and it talks about a part of Jewish history that I don't know a lot about. Like, I know about like what happened to them during World War II. But and right around the time of BC when Jesus and the Egyptians and all that. But I didn't know about the medieval period with because this takes place right before the Black Plague. So we get a storyline of this young girl who wants to be a scholar, but she's a woman. And she must get married because that's the only way she'll get by in the world and be taken care of and survives if she gets married. And she's being pressured to do that. Even her mentor has come to realize, as much as I want her to be learned, she can't because she's a woman, and women just can't get by in the world without having a husband. And on top of that, she is Jewish. She is a Jewish girl. So there's a lot of persecution towards her and prejudice towards her. Like, there's one character in particular who was really cruel to her and refers to her and her friend because she becomes kind of asked to be companion to this rich girl who is also Jewish, if I remember correctly. And this one guy who's friends with her love interest, but both love interests, their friend is like, just refers to him as Jewesses, and is, stating all these prejudices about him. He calls them thieves and all that, and I hated that character. I just wanted to smack him. It's so hard to read being a modern person living in a time where we're pretty fortunate, where there's still, unfortunately, a lot of racism and hatred towards certain groups. Especially, like, look at what's going on in the world right now. But here in America, we're mostly pretty fortunate, mostly. It's hard to say that, like I said now, consider what's going on right now, especially with the Jewish community. And we also have the main storyline, which is in modern day, of this woman, this professor, I don't know if she's a professor or a historian, I can't remember. And she experiences, ageism, and there's still a little bit of sexism towards her because she's a woman, and, and she also has, what is it? I always forget. I wrote this down last time. Not arthritis, but what Michael J. Fox had. I always forget the tremors, that she has that. So she has to deal with that and trying to prove that she's still capable of doing this, of being a historian. And then there's this young kid, this young man who really cares about this, and he's arrogant, and he feels like he's surrounded by idiots, and he also doesn't understand why this woman is giving him such a hard time and is so cold towards him, and he's trying to prove himself to her. But yeah, this is so good. It's so beautifully written. Like I said, it reminds me of The Historian. And it's so good. And like I said, I think I did a review for this. I think I filmed a review. It's been a while. Because I wrote this back in July. But yes, this was really good. And one of my favorites now. Okay, so next is a classic. So it was Jane Austen. I participated in Jane Austen July again, which I was able to do that, but I wasn't able to do October. I mean, October's not over, but I'm kind of focused on, on certain. I'm more motivated to read certain books that aren't Victorian related, so. But anyway, I reread Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Again, I love this. This is another favorite of mine. It's not number one by Jane Austen so far. That's still Emma. But I absolutely love this. And I think this one is underestimated and taken for granted, this story, because there's a lot of things in here that people don't love. Like, the love interest isn't that great. He's kind of a bit of a stick in the mud and a bit of a hypocrite. So you have Fanny, who is very shy and sweet, and she, her mom married for love, but he's not very rich, so her parents have a lot of kids, so she's sent to live with her cousins and aunt and uncle, who don't treat her well. And because her one cousin Edmund was the only one that was kind to her, and she falls in love with him over time. But he gets distracted, of course, by the Crawfords. But I love the Crawfords as antagonists. Oh, they're so much fun and delightful, and just, they're so, like, clever and manipulative, and you almost like them, I feel like because Fanny is so passive and such a very moral person, people just ignore her character, dismiss her character, but she is so strong, and after putting up with such bullshit from her family and bullied, like, by her Aunt Norris, and her uncle, who eventually learns the error of his ways and starts being a little nice to her, and her cousins are bullying her constantly, and she's manipulated by Henry Crawford, although he's not very successful because she's got his number. She knows his game, and she's not fooled by him as he tries to charm her, because for him it's a fun game to play to mess, because if he can woo her, he can woo anybody. That's what he thinks. And she's not dumb. I mean, she probably thinks he can be, charming and just knows and is very intelligent and stuff like that, but she knows at the end of the day that he's just a scoundrel who will take advantage of her. It explores a lot of interesting themes of morality and how hard it is to stay moral in this world where there's so many temptations all around you. And and it's also about, like, we get a little bit of exploring what was going on in the West Indies at the time, and with the father being, owning a plantation there. And I what's so, sorry, it's been so long, it's been a while. I like all the play stuff. I like how Fanny just stuck to her guns the whole time, no matter how much she was being pressured. I mean, Edmund eventually gave in, because Mary Crawford tempted him to participate in this play that they were not allowed to do because it was not appropriate at the time. I mean, and it gives them ideas that they shouldn't have. It puts things in their head that are not exactly moral. um, I also love her relationship with William, her older brother. That is so sweet. They really care about each other, and they were very close. And I think because they were kind of separated from the family, I think that brought the two of them together. Um, and like there's so many great things and about this, like, and I feel like people need to give this one another chance and really think about this. And just because, you know, it's very moral, and just, that Fanny is a more quiet heroine, a more shy heroine, and that she's, constantly having people walk all over. Just think about the time period in her situation. She can't exactly stand up for herself because she will be kicked out. And she can't live with her family. They can't afford to keep her. So yeah, people can, be like, why don't you stand up for yourself? But her family, she has no idea how they would respond to it. They might kick her out. I mean, and she'll have nowhere to go. I mean, maybe Edmund might protect her, but, he can't really, what can he say to his father? I mean, think about the time period. Like, I get it. It's hard not to be like, how, frustrated with Fanny and be like, why won't you stand up for yourself? But she can't. It's not, and again, like I said, I think she should be admired for her willingness to, to not, to still be okay. She's survived. She's doing okay. And yeah, I mean, maybe if they had such thing as therapists back then, maybe she would benefit from a therapist. But the fact that someone won't fight back to a bully, it's good to stand up for yourself, but the fact that you don't, like, and it's like, and I know submissiveness and all that is not good either, but the fact that she doesn't let it break her, that she doesn't let it, get to her, and, it doesn't affect her anymore because she's experienced it for so long. I think that's admirable because, it's easy to let something like that break you, but I feel like it didn't break her. In an alternate reality, it would be interesting to see what if she chose Henry Crawford, but, I don't know if Fanny ever would choose Henry Crawford, and even in an alternate reality, but who knows? It could be a really interesting story if she did. But yeah, I love this. That was Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. Okay. Next, I read the first novella in the Huguenot Connection. So this is a historical story set in France when the King Louis, I don't remember which one, it was like the 14th, I think, he took power, and he wanted everyone to be Catholic. Because he's Catholic, so everyone has to be Catholic because I'm the king. And he wanted, anyone, and there was a big Protestant community, or aka the Huguenot community, in France at the time, in Paris. So he was like, I want the least amount of bloodshed, but I want to get rid of these Protestants. So convince them that they need to be Catholic, they need to convert to my religion because I'm the king, or get rid of them. And it focuses on one particular family, and the sister ends up converting along with her husband, and because it's the safest bet right now, but this one family tries to stick it out and not convert, and stay true to their beliefs because it's their belief system. Like, people's belief system is very important to them. I mean, it's asking a lot for someone to change their religious belief. And the husband is sold into slavery and sent to probably, I'm guessing, the Americas. And the wife has to go into hiding while her kids stay with her sister and brother-in-law, where they're safest. And that's basically the first novel, is them dealing with that. kind of introducing these characters and how they're happy and everything's great and they're content until this happens. And it just, what happened to them just pissed me off and infuriated me. This whole, I mean, it kind of, like I said, it kind of reminds me of what's going on in the world right now. Just seeing what these people are going through, persecution because of their religious beliefs, and how I'm the king, you have to say what you have to believe what I believe, and if you don't, bye-bye. You're gone. I don't care. And just, it's disturbing, what people get away with. Just because of they have the power to. And, I felt such compassion for this family. I felt so bad for them. And the oldest daughter, oh my god, she was such a brat. Like, I know she didn't understand. She's just a girl. She's just a teenager. She's a young teenager, so I get it that she doesn't understand, but doesn't make her any less bratty. She's like, well, why don't we just convert? Because all my friends are doing it. It's like you want to say, oh, so if they jumped up off a bridge, would you do it? And then she's all mad when her aunt and uncle are offering to send her to her mom, who is in hiding because of this conversion. And she's like, but I want to stay with my friends. And I just want to smack her. And yes, I get it. She doesn't understand, but it still pisses me off. And I just still want to smack her. I want to tell her to wake up. Girl, you are in a situation, if you couldn't, people are being persecuted because they don't have the same religious belief. It's not such a simple thing. It's not like changing the color of your outfit or something. Or deciding what subject you want to learn. It's not that simple. You can't just be like, oh, my friends are doing it, so it must be cool. And again, but yeah, it was really good, very well written. It's the shortest one, I think, in this volume. So, I got through real quickly. And I picked it because it was kind of it felt a little like, there was a little bit of, water theme and all that, but anyway, so this was really good. I will be reading probably next year, I'll read book 2. Okay, so next we have, and that is by, the Huguenot Connection trilogy is by Paul C.R. Monk. And it's called Merchant of Virtue. That's the novel is called. Okay, so next one that I don't have anymore, I read it for Jane Austen in July, and that is The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. This is a gothic horror story about a woman who her dad dies while they're traveling to visit her aunt, and she ends up being sent to live with her aunt, and her aunt is pressuring her to get married, but the guy she has fallen in love with that she wants to get married to, her aunt doesn't approve of him. And on top of that, the aunt falls in love with this count, and they get married, and he whisks the daughter and the aunt to Italy, to his castle Udolpho, because he gets into trouble, some legal trouble, financial legal trouble. And he's trying to force her to marry someone to get them taken care of financially, but the guy that he finds that the guy he was gonna marry his niece to is not that rich, and he also is in need of money. So they are essentially trapped in his castle, and he's dangerous. This Count Moreno. I thought this was okay. It's very dramatic. And but there were some interesting parts and some exciting parts throughout. And there were times where I was actually impressed by our main character, whose name I forgot. Because she seems actually a little smarter than, a lot smarter than given credit for. And I did feel bad for her because that is a scary situation she was in. It's terrifying, and there is a lot of this great atmosphere. Although the antagonist was a bit of a letdown after a while, and but there was this great little mystery going on, and it wasn't bad. It was just not like my favorite. And it was, normally I'm fine with, classics being super long, but I got tired after a while reading that one. So, but yeah, it wasn't bad. It was still pretty good. And it was good that I can say I've read one of the classic gothic haunted gothic horror type stories. This kind of story, like there's, I can't think of the term right now. There's a term for, those over dramatic gothic stories. But anyway, so after that, I read a nonfiction about Jane Austen, which is Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things by Paula Byrne. I do want to read, I know she has another book about Jane Austen. That I haven't read. I can't think of what it's called right now, but I do want to read it. So this is the real Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things. So I really thought this one was really unique because at least for me anyway, I don't know about other people, but where it takes elements of things that the Austen family might have used, things that represent them, and kind of goes from there to elaborate on its history and how it's connected to the family, and like writing desk and carriages that they used, and like the sailor hat because her brothers were sailors, were in the Navy, but all that kind of stuff. The writing desk that Jane Austen used, the letters, Indian shawls that they would wear. They had family members that were across the pond a little, and it talks about like also portraits and like those silhouette portraits that people have, and it goes into detail and links them to talking about the history of the family, and I think that was a really interesting approach, a way to really dive deep and make it very personal because these were things that the family used. So I thought that was cool that was the way that she went about telling this information about Jane Austen. Instead of just stating the facts, she led into them. And went from them an angle that some nonfiction people, people that write biographies or memoir and something like that don't, like, an angle that they don't go through. I mean, I think a lot of others should consider doing that. I mean, then it wouldn't be unique anymore, but I think it would be a great way to approach history and learning about someone. Like, the things that they use really reflect that society and that person, I feel like. So there is Jane Austen, the real Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things. Okay, so the last book I read for Jane Austen July was Charlotte by Helen Moffat. I remember hearing about this book from Katie from Books and Things. I think she was working at the publishing company that was publishing this book. And it does a similar thing to the other Bennet sister, where it tells the story of Pride and Prejudice and after Pride, the events of Pride and Prejudice, from the perspective of one of the characters that's was kind of in the background, in the story. This is Charlotte Lucas, aka Charlotte marries the cousin, Mr. Collins, the cousin that wanted to marry Lizzie. She becomes Miss Collins. So we start the book with where they have their child, one of their children is ill, and we start the book with the child dying at a very young age and how they recover from that and how they deal with that. And she gets tempted to have, when she goes away to stay with the Bennets, with Darcy's Lizzie, she ends up being tempted by this gentleman who who represents everything she could fall in love with. So it explores grief in marriage and the importance of, and passion, what you could be missing in, like, trying to find the balance between a passionate relationship and a marriage that's, sensible and practical, and we also deal with miscarriage and the pressures of having a child back then. The importance of having, especially it being a boy, how important that was to have a child, and especially a boy. And if you don't have a girl, then you might not be okay, or they might lose their fortune to someone, to a male relative they barely know, which is what happens to the Bennets. Mr. Collins shows up, and we also, we like with, again, just like with the other Bennet sister, we meet and spend a lot more time with characters that, again, were background characters. Like, we actually get to know a little bit more of I can't remember their names. Mr. Collins' patroness, the lady, I can't remember her name. But what is Miss, let me see, I'm sorry, I can't remember the names. Sorry, I'm looking for it. Dang it. Oh, Lady Catherine de Bourgh. We get to see her a lot more, which can be very entertaining. And then we also meet her daughter, and we get to know her a lot more. We did get to know her a little bit in the other Bennet sister too, but she becomes what Charlotte was for Mary Bennet. She takes on, the daughter of Lady Catherine takes on the same kind of role that Charlotte did in the other Bennet sister. Kind of a advice giver and someone to help guide you and make sure, you don't make the same mistakes. And we kind of learn why she is the way we learn Lady Catherine's daughter, why she is the way she is. We begin to understand her a little bit more, and she gets more development, and she becomes a lot stronger of a character, and we understand her motivations as well. The potential love interest for Charlotte that isn't Mr. Collins is, I think, actually very charming and likable. He's a decent guy. And I can see why Charlotte would fall in love with him. And it's beautifully written. I think this author does try to channel Jane Austen's writing style. We get to also see Charlotte taking care of a household and what she has to do to take care of that, and also be a mother to her two daughters, because it's her son that she loses. And we explore grief in this story. So I think this was a really great, a great story that's kind of explores a character in Pride and Prejudice that doesn't get enough page time, and just getting to know them and seeing what happens to them. Okay, and then we have, and also, just like the other Bennet sister, we get to know Mr. Collins a lot more too. He's another character we explore a lot more in both books, which is really nice. And he becomes actually a more sympathetic and likable character, or an understandable character. A character that is not as annoying as he was in Pride and Prejudice. And a little more three-dimensional, I think. Okay, so next is one that I don't have. I decided to let go of this trilogy, but I'm glad I finished it. So, The Burning God, the third book, and the Poppy War trilogy. I did recently buy her book Babel from Walmart. So I will be reading that soon, at some point. I don't know, maybe in November. I don't know. But this was really good. It was a very explosive, a great ending to that trilogy. so much happens to, our Rin, and we explore a lot more of this the little triangle between Rin and the other two guys whose names escape me. And it's just it's really, it's very much, again, it's been so long since I read. I just remember really enjoying it and exploring, really the characters were, and I like how, once again, it seems like Rin has a hold on and understanding a better control of her powers and everything, but she has to rely on the gods, and she has to make difficult decisions of, and it's also continues to explore the idea of this war and how it's not so black and white, and how there are gonna be, and you gotta, like, as a soldier, you're put in this position of you can't get emotional, you have to do what's the best, and like sometimes that means killing people that might be innocent, that might not be involved, but it's hard to tell. Like, I really like how a lot of us explore the morality of war and how complicated it is, and how you kind of almost have to, let go and just stop thinking about these people, as humans. And so it's just really good, a really great ending. I'm sorry, I can't really, it's hard for me to articulate everything I felt. I wish I had done this sooner. See, that's the other problem with waiting and just going quarter by quarter, because then I don't remember details. Which I guess I could, and if I stick to this, maybe next year I'll take notes so that I'll remember things when I do my quarter wrap up. But yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of great fighting, action scenes. We explore the gods even more. We get to know them a lot more in the Burning God. We really get to know their history a lot more, and who they are, and just we see the aftermath of book 2, of course, and I missed other reason. I cannot remember. I don't remember specifics. Okay, so next I started August with Bag of Bones by Stephen King. I finally finished this book during the summer, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. This is about a writer who's still grieving the loss of his wife, who died a few years ago, and he finally decides to return to their lake house, that is called Sarah Laughs, for the first time. But when he gets there, he realizes that it might be haunted. Particularly by not just his wife, but also by the ghost of this black woman who was a performer, and she experienced a lot of racism, and she wants revenge. And we find out that he ends up meeting this little girl and her mother, her young 20-something mother, and becomes friends with them, and realize they are in the middle of a custody battle because the little girl's father and the husband of this woman died, and his father, who is a computer tycoon, wants the little girl for himself, wants to take the little girl, and does not trust her mother, and thinks her incompetent, and doesn't like her. And he might be connected to the ghost, the people haunting Mike Noonan's house, the lake house. It's really good. Again, I like how it explores grief and the struggle of lose, and how it kind of can put a plug on the rest of your life, because he has this creative, he's stuck creatively, and he's being pressured to write his next book. Now, of course, the relationship with him and the little girl's mom is a little iffy because she is a lot younger than him. So that was a little uncomfortable, a little weird. I mean, I do believe that these two loved each other, had fallen in love and everything, but it was kind of a weird situation because of the huge age gap. The ghost elements were really cool, and there was this surrealness to it and this otherworldly quality to it, with the ghost and everything, and in a way Mike travels to the past. I like, once again, you have Stephen King exploring small towns and the prejudices of small towns and how they can be caught in their own little bubble, and they have a hard time letting other people in their bubble, and if people start poking holes in that, then that's not good. They don't like that, and they quickly can turn on you. We get a lot of that in this book, especially in this book. Like, on the one hand, I like the closeness of this community. It's nice and safe and friendly, but then, like I said, you start poking holes, they don't, like I said, that's when it gets a little scary, and bad people can get away with stuff just to protect the community because they're so afraid. I kind of understood these people, but at the same time, I was frustrated because I knew Mike was in the right here. And they can't just abandon the situation. And they have to take responsibility for the mistakes of the past, because it plays into what happened in the past with this woman, Sarah Tidwell, this performer, in her band, and the racism that she experienced and the horrors. Stephen King definitely highlights that a lot in his books, which, the horrors of racism that sadly can still exist today at times. But it, the whole, I really liked, the antagonist, the living antagonist. He was really intimidating, but he also was like one of those bullies that still is like 12 years old and is used to getting their own way, and they just pitch a hissy fit if they don't. But because he's an adult, he has a little more power than a child, than a 13-year-old, than a 12-year-old. So he can do a lot more, and he's a little bit smarter. There's one scene where him and his girlfriend start throwing rocks at Mike and forcing him to back up into the lake. And it's like, really? How old are you again? And just, but I also felt really, at the same time, as much as I felt it was really immature, it was like, I was scared for Mike because they had very violent intentions towards him. They really wanted to hurt Mike. I do like the little girl. I thought that was his relationship with the little girl was really sweet. But there were, so there were still some elements that are in Stephen King books that not everybody loves. There still has, unfortunately, he's a tricky author. Even though he's very popular, and I don't think he's ever gonna get, in any trouble or get canceled or anything. Yeah, he still has a lot of elements in his books that make people be like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna read Stephen King. But I absolutely love Stephen King, and I love how he really builds up the characters, and you really get to know him. You really got to know Mike, and you really got to know the antagonist, the ghost, and all that, and just, and this whole community. But yeah, this was really good. I definitely recommend reading during the summer. Or maybe read on, if you have your own lake house, bring it with you. If you're staying at your own lake house anytime of year, bring this. It takes place at a lake house, so it would be perfect for the setting. But yeah, this was great. I had a good time with this one. Okay, 2 more books for this quarter. So, actually 3 more. 3 more books. One of them no, wait, never mind. It is 2. That's right. I realized that one. I didn't start until I read most of it. So now we have the second book in the Vagrant Gods trilogy by David Daglish, The Sapphire Altar. This picks up where the first one left off. And we see the main character, Cyrus, coping with the aftermath of the first book and trying to decide what he wants to do with the situation he's in, with the power he has, and what is the right thing to do. He's really struggling with that. A lot of these characters are struggling with what's the right thing to do in this book. And this is another story where it's very much characters are in a position of, they have everything taken away from them, and they will do something desperate that might not be morally great, but they're in a situation where what else can they do? There is some romance gone wrong. I mean, there is romance in this where a character, but it's more like, it's the cute lovey-dovey stuff. It's the drama, the tragedy, things. This couple gets kind of torn apart. These couples. There are two really beautiful couples in the story. Well, kind of three, because they set up another potential couple in this book. A lot of great action scenes. More of the more subtle stuff, the smaller scale stuff. No big wars or anything, but just characters, and I also kind of like how it has a bit of a Robin Hood type feel with the story, more so with the first book than this one. We get to learn more of the history of these kingdoms in this book, getting to know that, maybe Cyrus's family is not that great after all, and maybe they've done some things that are questionable, and we explore more of the gods. I love the whole idea of gods walking among us. This is another book that explores that a lot more. In a way, Philip Chase's trilogy, the Way of the Dan trilogy, kind of does that a little bit. There's really only like one god, but in that world. But this was really good, and I can't wait for the third book to come out. I'm gonna have to wait though. Hopefully in 2020 Thor it will come out. I might still have to wait though, because it might come out as a hardback book first. So I'll have to wait until it comes out on paperback, because I don't want to have two paperbacks, the first two books in paperback, and then a hardback in the third book. So anyways, it was a great second book. I enjoyed it. Okay, so the last book, before we go into the last book, this is the one partly why it took me so long to get through, at least, why I only read 2 books in September. And because this one took a long time. So, we have The Idiot by Dostoevsky, Fyodor Dostoevsky. So, this is about a young prince who lived his whole life in a sanitarium in Switzerland. And he just saw Prince Mishkin, and he's ready to come back to his home country of Russia. And when he gets there, he's very ill prepared for these people, these corrupt people, and their machinations and manipulations, and they all like him at first, but then they think he's a bit of an idiot, because he says things and he does things that don't make any sense to them, things that are in their eyes kind of dumb and naive. And then he finds himself in a love triangle, because he falls in love with these 2 different women. That one of them is this tragic woman, this fallen woman. He has taken her with her and finds her very beautiful and wants to help her. And then meanwhile, this other girl he meets, and he sees the beauty in her, and they kind of flirt back and forth, or she kind of starts messing with him, and but anyway, both these women were not good for Mishkin. He could have done, and I'm convinced he would be considered autistic. Just his actions and the way he interacts with people, and his his special interest in certain things are, he knows a lot about them and just how he speaks to people and how he doesn't understand social cues and just struggles with blending into people and just kind of starts to try to mask so that he blends in. He masks so he can blend in. He doesn't understand, sarcasm and like he just doesn't like get these people and it does, he was in a sanitarium, but he was still around people and like he still had people, he still was around people, doctors and stuff, but still he had interactions with people. So, I think he normally, if you would think he would have some understanding of people in social cues, but he doesn't. So, like I said, it makes me feel like he would be considered autistic. And oh my god, he's such a sweetie. I want to give him a hug. I feel so bad for him, especially by the end of the story. And you just like, I want to help him, and I think he deserves better between the two women. Neither one of them was that great. Like, I think that one woman, the fallen woman, would have just dragged him down, and the other girl was just constantly messing with him, manipulating. She was constantly playing the game of, I'm going to be mean to you, but it really means I like you. That whole, and he didn't understand that. He didn't understand why she was constantly picking on him and giving him a hard time. And she is so immature. Like, he needs someone that's a little more mature. And maybe the other woman would have been more mature, but she was still, I think she would have dragged him down. And she knew it. So, I mean, for a while she kept pushing him away, but she always kept coming back to him because she knew how good and moral a person he was. So she kind of wanted him to save her, I think. But then she just kept running from him. But oh my god, I just loved Mishkin. I felt sorry for him. I know his whole moral compass thing and his strong belief in God and talking about religion and stuff, probably not everybody will like that. But I think I think that his strong belief system is really endearing and sweet. And of course, I'm also Christian and I do believe in God and all that, so maybe it's easier for me to be fine with it because of that. But yeah, like his relationship with the other characters are very interesting to see explored. His interactions with these people, and you just get very fresh. And I can see where people would get frustrated with him and lose patience with him. But yeah, it's beautifully written. Dostoevsky, I love his writing, although he's very philosophical and talks a lot. And sometimes there are times when I'm like, okay, get to the point. But there are a lot of classic authors like Dickens who are like that, where you're just, I mean, I'm currently reading The Turn of the Screw, and it's, there are sentences that take away the horror elements because they're so long-winded. It's like, okay, get to the point. But anyway, so either way, I still love this. It just took me a long time to read. I mean, I was hoping to win it, but it did. Not as long as Crime and Punishment, but still. Now I'm probably gonna read Demons next. But yeah, this was really good. I very much enjoyed it. Okay, so I did start reading The Way of Adan. So part of The Way of Adan, I started that during September, towards the end of September, and then I finished in October. But that was a really good and that I very much enjoyed that, but I will talk about that one for my end of the year wrap up for the fourth quarter, probably in January or at the end of December, maybe by like New Year's or something. But anyway, so that is my wrap up for quarter 3 of 2023. What did you read in the third quarter of the year? I would love to know what you read and what you enjoyed and what you didn't, and if you want to, rant about what you didn't enjoy. Hopefully saw a book that I like. Anyway, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't, and click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified about my latest videos. And I hope you're enjoying your reading, and I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye!